Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving into a meticulously engineered nightmare today. We're going to completely deconstruct the chilling dystopian vision of Aldous Huxley's masterpiece, covering the core themes of the full book. Just imagine a society where, well, all human suffering has been totally eradicated. Sounds great, right? But what if it came at the cost of literally everything that makes us human? We're going to examine the architecture of this control and look closely at how a ruling power could, theoretically, synthesize total, unending conformity.
Community, identity, stability. It's the official motto of the world state, and honestly, it sounds almost pleasant, doesn't it? But as we analyze this text today, I really want you to keep asking yourself one thing. What is the true, horrifying price of engineering a perfectly stable society? Because to achieve this flawless stability, the world state has to completely wipe out the unpredictable variables of human passion, messy family dynamics, and even natural biology itself.
We are plunged right away into the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center. The source describes this place as a squat, gray building of only 34 stories, completely filled with this frozen, dead light, and workers wearing corpse-colored rubber gloves. Yikes, right? Here, human reproduction has been totally stripped away from the emotional realm of mothers and fathers. Instead, it's been transformed into this bleak, mass-produced assembly line. Human beings are no longer born, they are decanted. And right at the heart of this biological mass production is something called Bokanovsky's process. Basically, rather than one egg growing into one adult like normal, the growth of an egg is artificially checked. And paradoxically, the egg responds by budding and dividing over and over. The director of hatcheries actually brags about this, proudly calling it one of the major instruments of social stability. But this isn't some nurturing, gentle process. It's a brutal, highly calculated assault on the developing embryo. First off, it takes 8 minutes of hard X-rays, pretty much the maximum an egg can physically stand, just to force that initial division. Then, the resulting buds are suddenly chilled and checked. And finally, they're dosed almost to death with alcohol. These harsh arrests of development force the embryo to burgeon again and again, essentially manufacturing standard men and women in completely uniform batches. The terrifying efficiency of this whole thing culminates in one staggering number: 96. From just a single Bokanovskified egg, the hatchery can churn out up to 96 identical twins. As the director enthusiastically points out, you can have 96 identical twins working 96 identical machines. It's literally the principle of mass production finally applied to human biology, ensuring that the lower castes of society are entirely interchangeable cogs in the world state's massive machine. But the world state goes even further to remove natural reproduction from the equation entirely. See, while they do need some fertile females to harvest eggs, a fertile population is just too unpredictable. So they keep a massive safety margin. How? By allowing only 30% of female embryos to develop normally. The rest are dosed with male sex hormones right on the assembly line. They're decanted as free martins, which means they're structurally normal, but guaranteed to be 100% sterile. And that brings us from the realm of biology straight into the realm of society. In this facility, babies aren't just grown, they are predestined. The source text tells us that humans are bottled and conditioned for specific, unchangeable castes. You've got the brilliant alpha intellectuals at the top, all the way down to the menial, heavily stunted epsilons who do the heavy physical labor. Every single individual's future is biologically and chemically locked in before they even take their first breath. They are quite literally built to love the exact social destiny they cannot escape. Which naturally raises a pretty crucial question. If you have the absolute power to synthesize human beings, why not just make everybody an alpha double plus? Why not give everyone supreme intelligence and free will? Well, this exact question is asked by a character known as the Savage, who's an outsider to this sterile civilization. And it sparks this fascinating philosophical clash. World controller Mustafa Man's answer reveals the deep, incredibly cynical logic of the world state. To answer the Savage, Mond brings up the historical lore of something called the Cyprus experiment. Back in the year AF 473, the world controllers decided to run a little test. They cleared the entire island of Cyprus of all its inhabitants and recolonized it with a specially prepared batch of 22,000 alphas. They handed over all the agricultural and industrial equipment, took a step back, and left this society of absolute geniuses to manage their own affairs entirely. So, how did it go? Well, the timeline of this experiment shows a rapid, complete catastrophe. Within just 6 years, the society completely fractured. Alphas assigned to low grade work were perpetually scheming for high grade jobs, and those at the top were ruthlessly fighting to stay there. A first class civil war erupted, leaving 19,000 out of the 22,000 dead. The survivors actually unanimously begged the world controllers to resume governing them. Mond uses this as definitive proof that a society of alphas inevitably leads to strikes, intrigue, and destruction. You absolutely need the epsilons and the deltas to act as the gyroscopes that stabilize the ship of state. And this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental conflict at the very heart of Huxley's world. Mustafa Mond fiercely defends a society built on safety, where citizens are blissfully ignorant of passion, illness, and old age. They have no painful attachments, no family, no religion. But on the other side, the savage demands the right to liberty, to poetry, to God, and to the beautiful, messy tragedies of Shakespeare's Othello. The savage recognizes that a true human experience actually requires the freedom to suffer. Mund's response is cold and absolute. High art, profound love, heroic self-denial, these are all systematically sacrificed on the altar of societal contentment. You cannot have lasting civilization without plenty of pleasant vices, and you certainly can't have tragedy without social instability. And if any lingering distress or negative emotion somehow slips through the cracks, well, the citizens are conditioned to immediately cure themselves with soma, a perfect side effect-free narcotic that instantly washes away all anxiety, mirroring perhaps some of our own modern quick fixes. Now let's step outside the fiction for a second and look at Aldous Huxley's real-world prophecies. The source material provides us with this incredibly fascinating letter Huxley wrote in October 1949 to George Orwell, the author of that other great dystopian novel, 1984. In this correspondence, Huxley politely but firmly argues that Orwell's vision of a future maintained by a boot on the face and physical violence is ultimately unsustainable and wasteful compared to his own. Huxley proposes what he calls the ultimate revolution. He firmly believed that this true revolution lies far beyond mere politics and economics. Instead, it aims at the total subversion of the individual's psychology and physiology. He warned that future rulers would utilize tools like infant conditioning and narco-hypnosis, basically putting subjects into highly suggestible states to literally rewrite their desires and beliefs from the inside out. Huxley writes to Orwell with a truly chilling warning. He says future ruling oligarchies will discover that the lust for power can be just as completely satisfied by suggesting people into loving their servitude as by flogging and kicking them into obedience. This is the psychological horror of Huxley's vision. It's not a prison of concrete and steel. It's a prison of synthesized pleasure, where populations are conditioned to enthusiastically embrace their own enslavement. And what makes this all so incredibly striking is just how quickly Huxley saw his fiction bleeding into reality. In 1958, barely 27 years after publishing the novel, Huxley actually appeared on television to discuss a series of essays he wrote titled Brave New Worlds Revisited. He was deeply alarmed. He noted that his forecasts regarding overpopulation, the dangers of overorganization, and the vastly improved techniques of mass propaganda were coming true way faster than he ever imagined. The nightmare wasn't centuries away, it was approaching rapidly. Which leaves us with this final, profound question. As we look at our own modern world today, with our endless technological distractions, our quick-fix medications, and our highly curated streams of media, we really have to ask, are we already stepping into this ultimate revolution? Are we, in small ways, being conditioned to love our own servitude? It is a fascinating and frankly terrifying thought. I highly encourage you to read Aldous Huxley's brilliant source text for yourself to explore these concepts even further. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.